Welcome, everybody. How's everyone doing? Great. Super great. Oh, thank you. It's just great to have you here tonight. It is our last of our Strikeout the Stigma, so, you're coming to the great finale, so thank you so much for coming. This is our sixth Strikeout the Stigma for this 2025 season, so it's great to be back here in Citizens Bank Park. For those, are there newbies for Strikeout the Stigma? Oh, look, we got a lot of returning people. That's awesome. So the focus of Strikeout the Stigma is to bring important conversations to the forefront about the value of healthy life habits, supporting those around us, and removing the negative connotations surrounding mental health. Thanks to our community partners at Minding Your Mind. Do we have Minding Your Mind here? Yeah, thank you so much. Our topic of conversation for this month is centered around the positive impacts of social media. For those who don't know me, I'm Dina Nobleza, by the way. I'm the Director of Mental Health for the Philadelphia Phillies, and I'll also be introducing you to my co-host very shortly, who works alongside with me. Tonight, we will be recording this and distributing tonight's panel for fans to view across the tri-state area via Phillies.com and Phillies Podcasts. We thank all of you here today because a portion of each ticket purchased for the Strikeout the Stigma event will be donated back to tonight's nonprofit beneficiary, Hope for Hallie. We're very lucky to have an incredible panel with us yet again tonight, so let's meet them. So first off, I'd like to introduce my co-host, Antonio Cordero, who's our Philadelphia Phillies mental health counselor. Can we get a round of applause for Antonio? For those who have been to previous Strikeout the Stigma, you've probably seen Antonio before, but for those who don't know you, Antonio, can you tell them a little bit about your role here with the Phillies and tell them a little bit about our program, Phillies Caps?
Yeah, absolutely. Good evening, everyone. Good to be here. So yes, I'm a licensed mental health therapist. My background is in both clinical psych and sports psych, and I, along with Dr. Nobleza, provide services, mental health services for all of our teams. Essentially, that's 8 teams, and we both travel back and forth for continuity of care for every single one of our players, and yeah, we provide services for them, families, and also player-facing staff. So, yeah,
And the
good
coaches
to be here.
too?
Coaches too,
Coaches
absolutely.
need support too?
They do, absolutely, yes, yes.
Thank you, Antonio. Next up on the panel, please welcome licensed clinical social worker and social media influencer, Liz B. Croft.
Hi.
Liz, it's great to have you here, although I know from your social media profile that you're here quite often.
I am. This is my home away from home, I feel like, at this point.
Right, exactly. So can you share with our audience a bit about your journey and your current work at Mental Sesh?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you all so much for having me. I'm so excited. I'm born and raised in Pennsylvania, so I've been a lifelong Phillies and Philadelphia sports fan. But I'm a licensed therapist and the founder of my private practice, Mental Sesh, which is where I provide therapy services to elite athletes, high performers, as well as creators, and can kind of connect the dots through my social platforms, giving back resources, education, and really trying to just normalize and make the conversation around mental health more down to earth and digestible. And outside of the clinical work that I do, I also do a lot of consulting, partnerships, and activations, as well as just kind of merge the worlds that I'm truly passionate about into having those conversations come to the forefront when it comes to mental health awareness.
I just want to applaud you for all the work that you're doing for mental health awareness on your social media platform. I follow you, and I appreciate all that you're doing, both for athletes and for just the general population and for youth as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, yeah, no, it's good. It's good.
I got started that.
Well, we like supporting each other here, right? So with social media being the topic at hand, we'd like to welcome another social media personality to our panel this evening. Please welcome Tony So So, Tony, it's great to have you here.
Great to be
Strikeout
here.
the Stigma. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and why mental health awareness is so important to you?
Absolutely. First of all, I'm honored to be here with this incredible panel. This is great. This is my first time doing one of these, so thank you, Phillies, for having me. I'm from Boston, but man, I love your city. This is really nice. I'm a huge fan. But I'll say, so I started off, regular consulting, got out of college, was doing, the regular corporate work. And about 2.5 years ago, I started posting about mental health, my journey as a single guy, trying to figure out life, and my kind of quirky personality does come through on social media. And, social media can be known as a place that's not always great for vulnerability. And I wanted to kind of change that. And I started posting about mental health and things that I struggled with dating or with, at the time when I was single, doing stuff like that, or dealing with work and those type of things, just living my life, authentically. And that's the biggest thing that we think about with mental health is being authentic. And over time, I've talked about that along with masculinity and talking about, especially now with young men and loneliness and all that. It's become a passion of mine, and it's really cool to talk about these things, and the content has really evolved into more of that mental health journey. So I'm just really honored to be here, and we need to talk about this, especially among people in Gen Z, which it's hard out there right now, and we need to have these conversations consistently that you're not alone. So I'm just honored to be here.
And I've really appreciated your posts on vulnerability and
Thank
just
you.
seeing, just you letting all of your personality out there. I watched you doing some preparing for dancing in the wedding video. That was
Yes,
pretty cool.
no, I kind of have some softer joints, so I decided to use WD-40 to get ready for the dance floor at a wedding. And it actually worked out pretty well. I didn't break a bone, is why I'm here. So, no, it was good, though. You just got to be authentic out there. That's the biggest thing, and it's so tied to mental health.
Thank you. And finally, rounding out our panel this evening, please welcome #1 New York Times bestselling author and overnight Philadelphia fan favorite, Jim Murphy.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today, Jim. Can you tell a little bit about your career in baseball and where that led you to today?
Yeah, sure. I was drafted by the Chicago Cubs, played 5 years in the minors, played 1 year against the Spartanburg Phillies in North Carolina, South Carolina, somewhere over there. So, yeah, my whole identity was wrapped up in my role as a pro athlete. And when I lost it, I felt like I lost everything. And so it was devastating. So that's a big part of what I do now is I help people understand, especially pro athletes, but really everybody understand that what you love most really runs your life. And if it's unstable, then like for me, it was unstable because my role as a pro athlete was what was running my life. And that was, when I lost it, like I said, I felt that I lost everything. And so I really want to help people learn to love most what's most empowering.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. Yeah, the inner, I'm sure we'll touch upon the inner excellence part, yeah, and how that's sort of shaped your viewpoint of, performance and identity and success. So wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be part of the community. It's such a gift.
So Tony, I wanted to get things started here with a question for you. So social media is a topic that's often criticized.
Yeah.
For
You don't
those,
say.
For those who've attended previous Strikeout the Stigma programs, it's a topic that we've talked about here, also quite critically.
Yeah.
But, one of the themes that I think often comes up when I have conversations with players, coaches, staff, is this idea of like black and white, like good and bad, and just like most things in life, like it's not that anything is all good or all bad, right? That we all and everything, most things in life have this mixture of both. And so, what I was hoping is to bring a bit of some balanced perspective about social media. It's not all bad, it's not all good, but there's this middle ground, right?
Of course.
And so, with that said, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about some of the positive impacts social media has had on your life and career, and then maybe also on the flip side, what are some of the challenges and negatives that you've experienced as a content creator?
Oh, absolutely. So I'll start with the few positives. I'll start with the first three. And the first one is people can feel seen. So when I wasn't doing content for a really long time, and I was influenced by someone who did mental health content to talk about my journey. So the fact that I could, feel seen with another creator as their content was really, resonating with me, that's a beautiful thing. And I think the coolest part of my job now is that I get to do that. I'll get DMs from a lot of young men who are like, hey, I don't feel comfortable talking about this stuff with my friends, but your content has really helped me discover my authentic self and my journey. And you couldn't do that without social media being there, because it's, again, you back years ago, you couldn't connect people across the country. Now with social media, you can connect people in instant. You can have a 30-second video that resonates with someone. It changes their life, or they may have thought about something differently. I mean, we have so many great creators now that do mental health and do like little lessons about how to do life hacks or how to feel better about yourself, talk about happiness. And it's a beautiful thing. And that can only be done on social media. So that's just the structure of it is incredible. I think the second piece is community, right? You can find communities of people that you didn't know existed. You may have different likes, or again, we all have our own unique, quirky personalities, right? Sometimes we don't feel seen or heard with that, but you can find other people to join groups and Substacks and different Twitch now. And I'm not a big streamer, but like, Twitch and all those things. It can help people come together. And I think finally, with social media, it's also about amplifying causes. So when you talk about mental health as a cause, we had the ALS challenge years ago in the Boston area, and that, things like Strikeout the Stigma. That is amplified so well by social media. And again, one clip goes viral about talking about mental health, everything changes. So it's so much quicker now. We can really impact people's lives faster. Now, as a content creator, I've gone through my fair share of bad comments. Comment sections are tough. And social media brings out the best in us, but it also brings out the worst in us. And the anonymity can really make folks unleash some of their more nasty side. And I think that's for us as a community, a society, to figure that out in the next 10, 20 years as social media, AI becomes the traditional way of content, right? No more TV. It's all going to be social media. So I think it's on us to really change the game and not be so bought into rage bait or to clickbait or to things that are going to really get that rush of dopamine where we want to hate each other. I mean, because we look at the environment we're in now, social media is a big part of that, because we were fighting and we're arguing and we're saying the worst things we can about each other. I think there's an opportunity now to change that. And I think we can, by amplifying good content and content that really gets to discussion, that gets to amplifying good voices and those populations that need some good amplifying. So, sorry, it's a lot of words, but wanted to kind of put that all together.
So well said.
Oh, thank you.
I love this.
Very encouraging.
I love this idea, right, about connection. And, I think a lot of times, conversations that we have are about, isolation and social isolation. And, anything that's promoting community and connection, I think, can be very helpful, especially when it's obviously in the sort of more positive light.
Exactly. And then we have to be able to consume it and really encourage it.
Thank you. This next question is for Jim. So, you had done a lot of and have done a lot of amazing stuff in your career, but obviously the city of Philadelphia truly adopted you as one of their own during last year's Eagles Super Bowl season, when A.J. Brown was spotted reading your book, Inner Excellence on the Sidelines. Can you take us through what those 24 to 72 hours look like after that, and if there are others that all of a sudden find awesomeness and amazingness kind of drop in their lap in a quite quick moment? Any kind of tips or strategies how to deal with something like that?
Yeah, there's a lot that happened. It's still happening. It's pretty crazy, what God's done and the training that He's been putting me through my whole life, I think, to come to this point. So it was January 12th, Sunday of this year, and I'm in my hotel room watching Penn State play Notre Dame, another bowl game that had already happened. I look at my phone and I see all these texts, and I thought my mom had died. So it was a really amazing, like in a very intense week. My mom was dying. She died 4 days later. It was an answer to prayer because she was suffering. An amazing lady, had a huge impact on my life. And so, but life was kind of somber and a little bit lonely, and business was kind of slow. And one thing that's really interesting that happened that week was, so I look at my phone. This is like, I don't know, maybe 7 or 8 p.m. at night, and I see all these texts, and they said, you got to watch the Packers-Eagles game. And so I turn it on. But before that afternoon, I'm walking around by myself in empty downtown Dallas, and I look at the skyscraper, and the thought comes to my mind, would you rather own that skyscraper straight out for the hundreds of millions of dollars it's worth, or would you rather have written the book that I just wrote on? It's called The Best Possible Life, How to Live with Deep Contentment, Joy, and Confidence no matter what. And I thought, no, I wouldn't trade it. It's a book on the spiritual life, on the heart-led spirit life. And so I thought, well, at least you got that. Life's a little bit somber and lonely right now, I guess. And so at least you got that. And then a couple hours later, everything completely changes. Starts off with a text. I go to my laptop, I turn it on, and I'm like, wow, I think this is going to be significant. And it started right away. I got a call from a TV station in LA, said, we need your book right now. Can you get the book to us within the next few hours? So we're scrambling to get the book to them, and then I couldn't keep up with the interviews. It was nonstop. Yeah, it was amazing.
How did you manage that? Obviously, that comes with a lot of amazing things, right? But I'm sure it also comes with some stress as well.
Yeah.
So
I'll tell you
how
about
did
that.
you cope?
So day 3. So if we think of day 1 is January 12th. So it was about day 3 at 3 a.m. My heart's racing and just so much coming at me. Like I said, I can't keep up with all the interviews, and I wake up in the morning and I'm looking at these. So what happened that week? I fly to Philadelphia for the Rams game, the snow game, and I'm on the street and this guy asked me for money. I had no money, so I said, "Hold on, I'm going to go to an ATM." So I go to the ATM to get some money, and the ATM says I try to get $300 out, and it says insufficient funds. I try to get 200, insufficient funds. I get 100. I find the guy. I give him some money. The next day, my mortgage payment bounces, and my checking account goes to the negative. And that week, we sell 100,000 books, and it was a life-changing week for sure. But day 3, it's morning, and my nephew Titus was he's a Hutterite. He grew up as a Hutterite, which is like Amish Mennonite. They get $5 a month as their pay, and so he's like my assistant, and he's looking at the sales coming in. It's like, Jim, have you seen the numbers? Jim, this is crazy. And so, it was like so much happening at once. Like, how do I process it? And then everything changed when I had this conversation with God. Well, God kind of said a couple of things. It was really like, Jim, look, you didn't do this. You're not doing it. Nothing changes. Your purpose stays the same. And that was the load off my shoulders, because I was like, what is happening? Like, am I going to screw this up? Like, I don't know what, this is like hard to process. And then that day 3, when I realized, okay, this is not about me, and I didn't do it. I'm just a small part. I'm just the messenger. So it was really helpful.
And I see you've got some words of wisdom, too, on the back of your jersey.
Oh, yeah,
as well.
yeah. So this is kind of the slogan for Inner Excellence, Love, Wisdom, Courage. So.
Wisdom, courage. Great. Thank you so much, Jim. Hey, Liz. So, Liz, we want to talk a little bit about youth as well and social media. So, for young people today, what do you see as the biggest benefits of being active on social media? And again, just like we're talking about the balanced perspective, what do you see as the biggest risks or downsides for you?
Absolutely. When it comes to the benefits, it's the ability, like you were saying, Tony, to build community and connection. There's a lot of people who find people through social media that they would never have found otherwise because of shared interests and similar hobbies, whatever it may be. And with that community and connection also might provide a support system that that person might not have at home or, in the real world that they're living in. It's another benefit is also the education and the access to resources. Social media is a really great tool to share hotlines or websites or nonprofits that are doing amazing work, as well as different tips and tricks that one might apply to their own mental wellness routines. It's also a really great way to just break down the stigma of mental health, especially for young people who might not be having those conversations at home. Being able to see other people talking about feeling certain emotions or going through certain struggles is another great way to access that information. And then, lastly, it's also just about the ability to express yourself. There's so much creativity involved in social media, being able to go online, and Tony and I literally on the field before doing a fit check, through your personal style. There's so many ways to communicate aside from, verbally speaking. And social media is a really great visual tool for that. And it's a great way to just tap in and feel inspired and feel a lot of really good emotions for the youth. Now, on the flip side, when it comes to risks, right, there's this constant need to compare yourself. We are creatures of comparison. That is how our brains kind of function. And so when you're young and your brain is still developing, it is really hard to be online and see the highlight reel. One of the things I tell a lot of my clients is don't compare your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel, especially through social media, because we're so exposed to all of the wins that people are posting and sharing online, but so many people aren't actually posting the losses or the hardships that they're facing. Another thing is that it also risks misinformation being spread, and especially at a young age, it's really hard sometimes to decipher what is accurate and what is not accurate, and especially when it comes to mental health information. And then I would say the last risk is really the pressure to be on, to just really be present, to be, posting as much as you can. I think it is a very common way for our teens and young adults today to communicate and to interact. There's so much more URL connection happening than IRL connection, and sometimes we get lost in the sauce a little bit and forget to be present in the real world, but also risk not showing up as a human first.
Yeah, great themes there. I think that we can all be monitoring how we feel after we consume social media, especially for youth, right? Because, there may be some, let's say, a period of time where you're scrolling and it's fine, but then a certain amount of time where, it's too much and we notice that it's making us feel poorly. And, certainly there's some research that, right, for kids, especially if they're spending more than 3 hours, and that's already sounds like a lot, that it increases risks of anxiety and depression and things like that. So, I think just being cognizant and monitoring, right, how we're feeling when we're utilizing social media is a good one. So,
absolutely.
Great. Thank you. Antonio, I'll turn things over for you for these next questions.
Thank you, Dina. Jim, I'll start with you. For professional athletes, social media can be both a powerful platform and a source of stress. How have you seen this play out, and what advice do you have for athletes navigating it?
Well, one of the biggest challenges that all of us face is comparison. So we all have a heart that's deepest desires for love, for unconditional love. And so the way it plays out is there's a real lack of freedom because of the comparison, the 24/7 comparison. And if I fail, I'm going to get judged, and I'm going to get my greatest fear, which is rejection. My greatest need, love, my greatest fear, rejection. And so we lose freedom to fail. And if you want to be great at anything, then you have to be free to fail. I mean, it's just like joy. Joy and freedom are closely connected. And so, well, I don't know if this answers the question, but I'll share a couple things that I share with my clients. Well, anxiety in general is a mind with too many thoughts from too many concerns. And one of the things that happens to a lot of people is that they're so anxious, and they're afraid of what might happen or what just happened. And so what I want them to do is a couple things. Ask yourself, are you willing to face your fears? And are you willing to face any feeling? And are you willing to look foolish? And are you willing to be embarrassed? Because if you're not, then you got to be really, really careful. But the problem is also that even if you're as careful as you can be, you can still screw up, and someone can catch you, doing things that you might make a mistake and steal someone's baseball or something.
Oof.
I mean, I should say that I've done way worse things, but it's just not on TV. And someone didn't capture it. And so to me, that's we're all greedy. I mean, it's just like the idea of Shane Claiborne, hero of mine, said, someone said there's too many hypocrites in the church, and he said, I don't think so. I think there's room for more. Well, the idea is we're all hypocrites. I mean, how many times have I done things that I wish I didn't do, and how many times do I not do things that I should have done? And so, I'm the first one that needs the most help.
Gotcha. That makes sense, yeah. That's a powerful insight, and it sounds like maybe some of the work that you do also has to do with encouraging clients to maybe take risks, if that makes sense. Would that be an accurate assessment?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest problems is we have a single story. I had a single story for my life. My life is going to be good if one thing happens, and that's if I become a major league superstar. And that did not happen. And so then my life was over in my mind. And I think it's so important to understand is that you have your goals and your dreams and how you think your life should go, but those may not be the right goals and dreams for you. And those, say we take the top 10 goals you have and top 10 fears you have, these are the things that I fear the most, I don't want to happen the most, lose my job or whatever, and these are the things that I want to have the most. The truth is, you could possibly flip-flop those. Those 10 things that you fear the most could be the 10 best things for you, and the 10 things that you want the most could be the 10 worst things for you. And so we don't know what's best for us circumstance-wise or outcome-wise. And so that's why we want to hold our attachments loosely, our life loosely, and really focus on developing who you are as a person. And it really, one simple way to think about it is gratitude is such a huge aspect of, the way I think of gratitude is closely linked to inner strength, and inner strength is linked to inner peace, and inner peace is linked to inner strength. That's linked to mental toughness, and it's all linked to beauty. And so gratitude is kind of the key there. That's the main thing that you can control. Courage is another thing that's so important. I think when I look at the best athletes in the world that I've read about or worked with, I think courage is the number one thing that they have in common. It's that willingness to fail and make mistakes, and we can all be courageous.
Yeah, I think that's quite deep. I'm thinking to myself, this component of gratitude, right? Like you mentioned, that's actually something that comes up significantly in work with athletes and really in work with clients in general. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. Thank you. Tony, do you have any specific examples on how you have used social media to raise awareness to mental health and connect with others on the topic?
Absolutely. First of all, that was beautifully said. I feel like I had my own therapy session there. That was really good. Needed to hear a lot of those things. And first of all, I think when it comes to anything, to amplify social media, you can do it in two ways. You can either share it through a post, a video, or through stories, which is really interesting because you can reach your followers a little bit more directly. And one of the things that I've, done for a lot of my stories usually is like kind of just doing a mental health quote, from, folks, who have either, gone through mental health, or folks that, have succumbed to it, or folks that are leaders in the industry now. They're like talking about these things in sports, media, just to kind of share simple quotes that are like, okay, what are some ways you can kind of go through life and just think about things differently? I also think, especially when I talk about young men's mental health, I will always really post about stuff that has to do with, okay, what's like our anxieties going on for Gen Z and, I say younger people, even though I am a younger person. Like what are we going through? And I think talking about those things and just saying, hey, these things exist. We can't afford things. We're dealing with issues, socially, or we have loneliness issues. I think just talking about those situations and making them, putting them out there and saying, yes, they're real, is an important part of that as well. And finally, really the greatest joy that I get to do is really amplify organizations that are doing the work. Because for me, I have a platform, yes, but I'm not doing the grunt work. I'm not doing the work that's actually changing lives on a daily basis. I have people in my life that run organizations, that are teachers, that are principals, that are putting out great content and really putting the money and the effort towards, helping to fix these, these issues that we have and dealing with mental health. So to be able to amplify their pages and to amplify what they're doing, do fundraisers, just with a click of a button, raising money, boom. You can put a link on your bio, or you can do a story or just a post about it. That's the greatest joy. It doesn't take a lot of effort from me, but it's just really cool to do that. And the more you share things and amplify it, and again, the way social media works is that you just kind of keep on getting bombarded with it. Let's bombard people with good things. Let's bombard them with good ideals. Instead of bullying and anger, because we have a lot of bullying out there, let's do it towards gentleness and helping people through this process.
Yeah, that's an amazing take. I'm curious, in your experience with social media, do you notice any particular trends in terms of what you notice being needed from a mental health perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we need more, and I judge this based off of comment sections and things that come about my videos, because I'm pretty vulnerable, I throw myself out there, is that I think a lot of folks in comment sections lack seriousness. I think social media can be a place where we lack seriousness, where everything's always a joke, especially among young men, and that's a whole other conversation about how men treat each other. And this whole anger, and you have to be a certain type of person, you have to act a certain way, you have to bottle things in. Being vulnerable is cringe. We use that word way too much, by the way, cringe. We gotta stop using that word. It's way too much, and it's overused. And it's so interesting how a lot of folks will say, we want vulnerability, we want openness. But then when people are open, we criticize. So it's kind of an interesting battle. And I think the opportunity we have with social media is to really, when someone posts something, less if it's bad or if it's really negative, we don't want to amplify that. But if it's someone being vulnerable on their journey, let's use it as a place for constructive feedback as well as positive affirmation and say, hey, keep going, keep being special, keep bringing joy to others. Because I just saw a page last week, it's called Joy Bait. It's a whole new concept of rage bait, doing joy bait and filming people in their kindest moments, like just natural reactions. And I think that's the type of stuff that we can really start to focus on and change this dynamic of, we want you to be open, but not too open. We want we'll criticize you for it. So I think the call-out culture needs to kind of be a little bit tempered down, because it can go to bullying very quickly. And so many kids are going through. That's why I'm a big proponent of having age limits, because you have kids that are getting bullied on social media, have no idea what to do. And with AI coming in, we have a storm coming if we don't fix it. So I just hope that we can find a way to, through the algorithms or through how we consume content together, to really just kind of almost like take a breath before we see a piece of content. Take a breath and go, all right, would I say this to the person if they were sitting in front of me? Would I actually do that? Or is this just for me to kind of get some anger out that I need to get out? Instead you go do some kickboxing or go to a rage room or something like that, So I just think taking that deep breath and knowing that this is a place for everybody now. This is not just an offline place. Social media is going to be the main delivery for all content, and that we have a responsibility to make it the kindest place it can be.
Interesting, right? Because I think you mentioned amplifying and being intentional with what we amplify in this realm, right? So I think that certainly rings true. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Liz, what unique challenges do young athletes or young females face with social media?
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to young athletes, I think, especially in today's world of social media, there's this pressure to build a brand. They're still developing who they are as a human, figuring out their identity, but now there's also this added layer of, hey, I can make a lot of money, or I can get discovered, or I can get recruited in some capacity. And what that does is it puts a lot of pressure on their self-worth, right? Measuring validating your self-worth based on comments, likes, engagement, brand partnerships, things like that. And I think for young athletes today, we have like NIL deals. There are high school kids making huge salaries, because of that. And with that being said, there's not only the pressure to perform online, build a brand, craft this content in a certain way to show up in that way, but you're also then kind of pigeonholing yourself into this one identity. And all these people that are now following you online are really following you because of the athlete that they think you are, but not necessarily getting to show all the other areas of your identity. And so then you're also, this message is being reinforced that I am only valued as an athlete, not as a human being or as a person who loves fashion or Disney or sneakers or whatever it might be, right? And so, it's that as well, but then additionally, it's, there's pressure to maybe provide for yourself or your family. And that's another layer that is, added in that can increase anxiety. Now, when it comes to young women, that's another layer where there is a lot of scrutiny about your appearance online that young women face every day, and also just comparison and comparing yourself to other young women online and how they're showing up, what they're doing. There's a lot of talk right now of like the Gen Z uniform, right? Seeing like all of the Gen Z girls wearing very similar outfit styles, and the concern of like not having that full sense of self-expression because there's this approved look or way to act or behave online versus the fear of maybe showing up authentically as yourself and being rejected for doing so. So regardless, I think both groups, there is the spotlight that, those pressures only magnify the typical struggles that adolescents and young adults face.
That makes sense. One of the things that I heard you mentioning is, the importance of maybe fostering different areas of your identity, right? I'm curious, as a clinician, and in your expertise with social media and the intersections of these two, how would you go about that process?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's really taking time to separate church and state, right? Like figuring out who I am as a human being. I love to do an identity map with my clients where we will sit and we will just, put their photo on a wall, and we will talk about all of the things that make them them, and making sure, how are you pouring into all of those buckets? Are you making sure you're spending time doing X, Y, and Z of your life? Because what happens is when you're only showing up really strongly in one category or one facet of your identity, you're not necessarily feeling as fulfilled as you can be because you're neglecting so many other parts of yourself. And so it's really, acknowledging all of the parts of yourself, embracing that, and by doing so, you're able to connect with other people who aren't just teammates or coaches or athletes or, other people who are only in one bucket of your life.
Super cool exercise. Thank you for sharing that. Appreciate it. Yeah, thank you.
So, Jim, we have one final question for you because I know that you have to be going soon to throw out the first pitch. So this last question is, how can athletes, or we all in general, use social media positively while still protecting our own mental health? Any tips?
I think the things that we talked about tonight are so helpful, and some of the benefits there is one benefit that I had that's pretty clear. A football player read my book, and it got pretty popular. I think social media was really kind of the key for that. You can learn so much from so many great people. It's just really making sure that you have a time limit and just understanding it, like everyone knows, that as soon as you watch one thing, the algorithm is going to bring more of it, so you just got to be careful of what you watch. One of the things that I always tell everybody is that we're led around, as humans, we're led around by our eyes. And so you see a beautiful sunset, you get that sense of awe, and you see something scary, you get scared. And so if you're watching video, for example, like if you watch the news, if you want to be informed, it's so much better for your mental health to read it than watch video, because video, now you have video and audio, And it just has, because most news is negative, it's going to really have that impact on your mind. So we want to be really careful about what we feed our mind with, and making sure that one of the best ways, I think, to replace anything that's mindless is to make sure that you have good things that you can read and ask people for recommendations on books and podcasts and things like that.
Thank you so much. Can we get a round of applause for Jim? I know you'll be doing a great job out there with your first pitch, so thank you so much for joining us. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored. Like I said, to be a part of this community is such a gift, and I'm super excited for what's to come for Philadelphia.
Awesome. Thank you. So Tony, we're going to have a question for you here. So, and I'm excited too, because I think that you're able to maybe spread awareness about something too that I learned about.
Oh, great.
So,
I'm
you
ready.
talk a lot about vibrant masculinity, which is a term that I was not familiar with
Yeah.
before. And so I think, one, we have to, explain for those
Yeah.
that do not know about vibrant masculinity a little bit about that.
Yeah.
But then also, if you could talk a little bit about why you think there is a stigma connected with mental health and masculinity. But yeah, tell us first about vibrant masculinity
Yeah.
for those who don't know.
So my whole view of the world is, when you're trying to fix something, don't put a negative term with it. So I get people say toxic masculinity, that's fine. I just don't like to always look at things from the negative thing of like what's wrong. I try to look and say, what are the things we can aspire to be? So when I look at vibrant masculinity, look at the word vibrant. It means you bring brightness to the world. You are warm, you are kind. Some heroes of mine are Mr. Rogers, Bob Ross, LeVar Burton, those type of folks that brought joy to the screen and in real life. And they did it through being warm and through being gentle and through really making you feel like you're the only person in that room and that you matter every second of that time. So to me, it's about a feeling. You bring that joy to people. You bring that warmth. And I'll tell you something, and I learned it, when I was younger and I was going through my, my struggles with mental health and self-harm, it was the people that just brightened my day, teachers, friends, coaches, that just had like a warm just demeanor. That saved me. Those little things kept me going another day, kept making each day a little bit better. And I remembered that, and I just remembered the impact those people had on me. And I have this whole view of, with masculinity, a big part of it is service, big part of it is service to others, and people that feel alone, that are isolated, that are in the dark. Your job is to make their life brighter. I think it's for everybody, but I think especially the service element for young men. So that's a big one for me, is about bringing that light to people. So it's not that you can't play golf or smoke cigars like I do or play sports or whatever. You can do whatever you want, watch a podcast you want, but it's about bringing joy to people and getting in touch with that softer side, which is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing, and I think we need to do more of it. And again, I know there's a lot of toxic traits we have to deal with masculinity in young men. We got to deal with that. I just think being more aspirational and talking about what we can do, what improvements can be made, as opposed to saying, oh, this is something, I think is a better way to go. So that's kind of why I label it as vibrant masculinity, as like an aspirational thing. But there are definitely things we have to address that aren't so positive. So it's, again, it's like balance, right? Like not everything is black or white. It really is about figuring out what the issues are, what are the struggles for young men, and also how's that impacting society, and then being aspirational about it and trying to actually go and get it. And that was the second question. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, no,
I'm
that's
not good
great.
at two-part questions.
No, it's fine. Actually, what it was making me think about is, how I just love this idea of meeting things that are negative, or even when it generates something angry, upsetting in us, like how, if we can bring a little bit more self-awareness to it so that we can understand, what is it in us that is sort of generating these strong emotions? Because I often tell players and coaches and staff, like even when we experience anger, right? Anger is not a bad emotion, right? Anger is about trying to understand in us, it's a sign, right?
Yeah.
And so what can we understand about ourselves, about what is it striking in us that we're passionate about, that we can then kind of, again, bring something potentially positive, right?
Right.
Like, even when in social media we might see something, over the last week that might make us angry, like, how do we bring compassion
Right.
potentially to it or to that individual?
Right.
And so I just love that
Thank you.
whole idea of, I feel the positivity emanating from you. So-
There is a balance, though, because there's real accountability needs to happen out there, and we have to have tough conversations, especially among young men, among each other, among Gen Z. We have to have discussions that are tough, and there are people that are suffering out there that we need to uplift. So we can't always be positive. Again, I hate to use our toxic positivity, but we can't feed into that. But I think if we can come into hard conversations with a solid demeanor, really being deliberate in how we talk, and trying to get to those aspirational solutions, we can actually get something done. Because sometimes it's more profitable to fight about something than it is to actually try to at least get a couple of, pegs ahead, if you will.
Yeah, right. If we're contributing to some dialogue even, right? Like,
Right,
that's great.
just having a chat, and again, it's okay to hold your friends accountable. Say, you said something that was really mean or something that was really bigoted. No, we don't do that here. That's important too.
Right.
But then you have the discussion of why.
Yeah.
Why did that impact me? Why was that wrong to say that or do that?
Right. So even with social media, even if there's something where it sparks a conversation with another, right? That's
Right.
another sort of piece where we can create either some connection or some understanding or hear differences of an opinion. That's okay too.
Right, exactly. And again, keeping it fair and keeping it dignified in terms of like, hey, you're not going to insult somebody or disrespect someone's humanity in my presence or on my page. I think and again, we talk about, having discussion. It's a good thing, but we have to make sure that, again, we're not creating a place where people can just, I can say what I want and I can demean somebody, which social media has become in a lot of ways. So I think we have to balance those two things out as we go forward, because this is going to be our main medium. Like, it's coming. It's going to, TV and everything's going to morph into this. So we have a responsibility, I think, every one of us that operates and uses social media to try to bring a little bit of joy that those influences brought to us. We love everybody that we saw on TV, the Bob Rosses, even the Oprah Winfreys, those type of people that did really good work. We're all our own little brands now. We have a responsibility to just do a little bit of joy and try to be a supportive place.
Yeah, the second part of the question was, why do you think there is stigma connected between mental health and masculinity, and how do you approach that challenge in your daily life?
I think the biggest fear young men have is other men. We're very much afraid of what other guys are going to think of us. And I can name a few of the titles off: beta male, simp, wuss, some other words I can't say in mixed company, but we are so afraid. And I'll tell you, it comes into our dating life, it comes into a lot of things, especially for straight men. It's all about looking tough. I have to look a certain way. I have to lift and bench a certain amount of weight. I just saw a few politicians were doing like a lift off with like bench presses, and it was embarrassing. Like, come on. Like, there's other things you talk about with masculinity besides bench pressing. And it's a good thing. Bench presses are fine. But the problem is it's all about performing. It's all about making other guys think, hey, I'm a man, I'm tough, I could beat you up, I could come in there and I could take care of business, instead of did you serve others? Were you kind to somebody? When someone was being bullied, did you step up? As opposed to, do I have the biggest muscles in the room? And I think a lot of guys, we're starting to break that fear, where it's like, you know what? If my friends don't think I'm strong or have courage because I came out about my own mental health or my own relationship journey, those aren't my friends. And we have to really start thinking about how we approach each other, because it's really about support. Because the reason why we have a loneliness problem among young men, I think, is because we never really were taught how to have true friendships with each other. And yeah, it's about, okay, sports teams hanging out, joking with each other, but we take that so far sometimes, as opposed to saying, I love you, brother, I'm proud of you. Or when a friend of yours does something wrong or whatever, and it's wrong, not making a joke about it, but saying, hey, let's talk about this. Maybe you're hurting, let's talk about this together. Or when you achieve something, give them a hug and go, I'm so proud of you. Or just normalizing getting together as friends and talking. Doesn't always have to be going to the bar and watching a game. It can be going to play golf or hanging out, going for a walk and talking about things. Because men have so much to give emotionally, and we've been repressed into doing that. We have so much good to give in our own way, and I just think we have to just allow each other, give ourselves the permission to be open. And if we do that, I think we're going to be okay and get out of these issues that we have. Again, nothing that's wrong with young guys today cannot be fixed by what's right with us. We can really make that happen. So that's all I got for that one. It's a very it's a tough time for it, but I think we can do it, and we just we have so much to give. Let's give it.
I love it. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm thinking different themes like identity tied to performance, something that is often a topic of conversation that Antonio and I have with folks here in this community, and how, I know Inner Excellence, that book sort of covers, is like the emphasis on creating the excellence internally and working on that love, courage, wisdom internally, and, less of that focus, on the winning, which is obviously, we also want to win here too, but the internal work is important too.
Oh,
yeah.
Well, what's so funny is I was watching a podcast, and I'm a black belt in karate, and I did karate for 15 years. I mean, the men that I did work with and did, we trained for our black belts together. We would be razzing each other in the gym, like, I'm going to get you, I'm going to beat you. But then afterwards, we're hanging out talking, I'm so proud of you, you did that move right. It's not an either or. We can do both. We can be competitive and joking around, but we can also go, hey, brother, I know something's wrong. What's going on? How can I help you? Because that can unleash so many great things for us.
It's interesting because I know, one of the wonderful things about having Antonio here is that, having, someone who's male that can have these conversations with the players and model and asking the questions that promote emotional expression, in the spirit of gratitude. Thank you, Antonio, for being here, because I think that you're making such a big difference in terms of the cultural shift of talking about emotions with the men in this community. So thank you.
Thank you, Dina. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Liz, this next question is for you. So if a parent, coach, or teacher were worried about a young person's social media habits, what are some warning signs that they should look out for?
Yeah, some warning signs I would say are withdrawing from, your relationships or any activities that you previously really enjoyed, becoming, or maybe having a lot of mood swings, maybe becoming more irritable, or paying attention to how your youth is, feeling after they're done using social media. If they're scrolling and they seem more irritable or anxious or sad, that's probably another good indicator. Another one might be even having obsessions with social media, like almost being so consumed by their engagement. How many likes am I getting? How many shares am I getting? Like constantly talking about that type of stuff. As well as sleep disturbance. Are they up late at night scrolling because they can't put their phones away and they don't have healthy boundaries with it? And then lastly, I would say is also just secrecy. Are they hiding their phones from you? Do they not want you to see how much time they're spending online? Do they not want you to see what their activity online is looking like? Those are all pretty good indicators. But I think, ultimately at the end of the day, social media is a tool, and how we use that tool really plays a role into whether it's helpful or harmful. But if it is harmful, it's going to have some type of impairment into their daily functioning, into their overall mood and emotions, as well as how they're performing in life. So if you're noticing any of those types of things or any disruption in their normal performance, that's a good indicator to just step in and have that conversation.
Thank you, Liz. Are there any other kind of tips or strategies that you have for young people, for all of us in general, that we haven't talked about when it comes to social media use?
I think when it comes to social media is really just like taking the time to define your relationship with social media, what it means to you, how you want to use it, how you want to show up online. I think the more intentional we can be about it, the less ingrained and absorbed we can become with it. So it's really just being clear-cut on what our expectations are around it. Not to say that those expectations and those intentions won't change over time, but having conversations with your kids around what you hope the expectations look like, and vice versa, listening to your kids, because when you go to school and everyone else is using it and your parents are the ones saying, no, you can't be on it, that's also not the best feeling either. You kind of want to meet halfway and find a middle ground on that as well. And then also, I want to just shout out a nonprofit that I truly, truly love. A friend of mine started this nonprofit called Half the Story, and their whole mission is to really educate on digital wellness and the younger generation's relationship with social media. So it's there to teach not only the youth, but also parents how to, use social media and understand it, because like you were saying, it is going to become a very dominant thing in our life. And I think, it might be a little bit of a spicy take, but parents, we gotta keep up, just as much as we gotta keep up with the news and what's happening in the world and current events, we also need to know how to use social media so we can be that active person in our child's life to be able to kind of monitor and have those conversations with them. But Half the Story does that, as well as create and teach healthy boundaries to the kids who are on social media.
I love that. That's great. Like this idea of also as parents, teachers, et cetera, that they need to be educated about how to utilize or know how to unfollow certain content so that they can speak to the younger folks in a way that is...
My mom's profile picture is still our dog, who's no longer with us, might I add. So I always joke to my mom, you cannot tell me anything about my social media until you know how to post something, which she still does not. So till then, I have say.
Yeah, so we got to send her a DM with the,
Send her
with
an
the link to
instruction.
this nonprofit.
Instruction
Right,
manual,
yeah.
yes.
So we're almost to game time. So before we let our panel depart, we'll ask one final question to sum up everything that we've talked about this evening. And this can also double as a call to action. So how can we as a community spread awareness of the importance of mental health, especially when it comes to young athletes? So Antonio, we'll start with you, then Liz, and then Tony.
So I think for me, listening to the insights from our panel guests today, there's three things, and I think this was a great panel, and I took the liberty of kind of maybe writing a few things. So I'm a big believer in balance, both in my work and in my personal life. So what I interpret from this conversation is balance in our consumption of social media, balance in the attention that we place on it, and also in how we interpret what we see from others. I think a huge message too is to amplify positive messaging, right? So I think that I'm a big believer also in we strengthen typically what we feed and what we fuel, which is also something that we work with our athletes in here and with our coaches. So I think a big part of that is maybe seeing that we all carry a responsibility, but also an opportunity to shift the dynamic and perhaps some of the negativity that we see on social media every once in a while. I think Liz mentioned another important part, which was seeing different parts of ourselves and expanding on our own sense of identity. And then the last part, which is I think sounds simple, and yet executing on this is difficult, which is talk about sometimes how you're feeling, be kind to yourselves, and be kind to others as well. I think sometimes as we're shifting this dynamic, you may have someone come to you and talk about how they're feeling. Be kind. You never really know how important that moment can be to that person and even for yourself in correcting some of these preconceived notions. So I think that's important for today.
Thank you, Antonio. Liz?
Yeah, one thing I learned in some past work experience is, it's from a trauma-focused lens, but it's, when you're interacting with someone and they do something that might annoy you, or even yourself, right? We're so inclined to be like, what's wrong with me? Or what's wrong with you? So try and reframe that. Instead of asking someone or even mentally thinking, what's wrong with you? Try and lead with what happened to you. I think that gives a more empathetic, understanding approach. And especially when it comes to social media, trying to understand what's going on. Why are you wanting to be on social media so much? Why are you trying to, show up in this way on social media? Why are you trolling in my comments right now? It's not necessarily going to fix the problem, but it also will help you, if you're dealing with being bullied online, move past it. And also, just have a lens where you feel more in control of your response and your reaction. But also, I think overall, it's really just creating environments like these, whether it's through sports teams, whether it's through friends, through family, where, we feel like we can have this conversation around mental health. And just like we're having the conversation on physical health, it's so easy to be like, I'm sick, I don't want to go to school today. Well, let's, open up more about our feelings and have those conversations too. And that comes down to, our coaches, our parents, our adult, or any prominent key person in your life, really modeling those behaviors. So, on social media, the algorithm really does feed itself. If you're engaging with content that's negative, you're probably going to be fed more of that content. So being intentional as well about who you're following online. Follow Tony. He's someone who is putting out that positive messaging. Follow people that inspire you and uplift you rather than make you feel worse about yourself. And, for the people in our everyday lives, model that behavior for our younger generations as well.
Thank you. Tony?
By the way, I vice versa, please. This is not just a one-way thing. God, I was thinking of this for a few minutes. That's a great question. I think for any athlete or for someone who wants to be on social media, creator, whatever, I think you have to understand that, and this is kind of what I've learned too. I've been going through it too. I mean, I respond to comments and I find myself being a person I hate. You know what I mean? So I look at that and I ask myself why. And I think at some level, social media can amplify sometimes the insecurities that we have in ourselves. And, they're saying it. Maybe what I was saying about myself maybe is true. So I think, first of all, have grace for yourself. You work hard. You go through a lot out there, especially now. Give yourself grace. Allow yourself to take those little wins, even in small work situations, sports, social media. And I think just when you look at being authentic, we use that word so much, it's overused. But I think authenticity can be driven what you want someone to feel when they talk to you. Maya Angelou always said, people will forget what you said, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And I think on social media, if you have the goal of bringing some type of good feeling to somebody else, that's what you come at it with. Whether it be through sports or through what you're saying, then I think comments or negativity can't hurt you because you are being truly authentic. And you're putting something out there that's intentional, that actually has a good end to it, and also a good means. And then finally, I would just say we have an opportunity, everybody that has a platform. A lot of Gen Z likes nostalgia. We go back years as we kind of don't like we don't like the existence that we have now. We don't like where we're living now with everything going on. I think we have a power to be even better, to be even kinder, to break down barriers a lot faster, to really shape hearts and minds in an instant. What a beautiful thing we can do. And I think looking at social media and this opportunity as a mission, that we can actually spread something good and do even better than all those people we talked about years ago. We can do 20 times better. And all the hate that we see, we can break it down a heck of a lot faster with social media if we do it right. So if we think about it as a mission, I think we'll be okay. Anybody on social media, think about it as a mission. It's what you want to do. You want to impact people. Nothing can hurt you.
Thank you so much. Social media, it sounds like there's a great opportunity for us, and this is something for us to walk away from and sort of keep in our mind is where is the opportunity? Where is the positive opportunity in social media? Thank you. Can we get a round of applause for our panel? A round of applause for the audience. Thank you, TJ, and everyone else here. TJ Farrell, thank you for all of the work that you've done for Strikeout the Stigma this season. We couldn't do it without you. So again, round of applause for TJ. And can we get a Go Phillies? Go Phillies. Thank you so much, everybody.